Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Heather H. Bennett. Heather, welcome.
Welcome. It's so good to see you, Thomas.
It is good to see you also. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, my name is Heather H. Bennett. I am a marketing strategist. I have worked for over 20 years in brand marketing, more recently focused on helping CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs to use their personal brand to achieve their business goals. And I am the author of a best-selling Amazon book, Fun and Fulfilling Careers, One Question at a Time.
Thank you for the introduction. I did say that I would like to ask you about your story. Correct me if I'm wrong, you do business coaching or consulting as well, is that right?
Yes, yes.
So I guess the first, where I'd like to start, if that's okay, is where you first go into business. So what were you doing before you decided to go into either self-employment or into your own business?
Yeah, so I originally started out doing biology research. So specifically molecular cellular biology for Unilever, and really enjoyed the work that I was doing for them. And most specifically, the work I was doing on the brands and getting to work with the marketing teams and understand the power of what a brand can do. At that point, I decided to go back and get my MBA because I was fascinated with how marketing and branding could change the relationship between a product and the user and the followers who are using it. So did that, worked in consumer packaged goods for a bit on a bunch of very large, well-known brands like Pyrex and some other ones that people have heard of. So enjoyed that. And then as a side hustle, I was helping various businesses and people with their careers, with their business problems, startups, issues with employers. People would just come to me and say, oh, could you just talk to my friend, my sister, my colleague, and help them out? Because the way you phrase things and how you're able to look at a problem and ask the right questions to get to a solution is very unique. And I said, whoa, I'm not an HR person. I'm a marketer. What do? And they're like, just help. So eventually I started getting more and more of these clients and decided at that point to jump out of corporate because there was clearly a need for that type of help. And I enjoyed it and it was fun. So jumped out of corporate and I've been doing that solely for about 18 years now.
Okay. So the brand marketing is in employment, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what was it about you had should we say a preference to go into branding and marketing when you were doing biology? What was it about that would you say that you didn't enjoy it or that you just had a preference for the branding and the marketing?
Well, I enjoyed both very much. Working in a laboratory all day with very expensive and loud equipment and radioactivity and chemicals is lovely. Much of it, no, I really did enjoy much of it. I love doing research. I love data analysis, understanding the way to find connections, to find solutions and to see things that no one else can see based on deliberate and it's very meditative. A lot of laboratory work I find very meditative, very calming, and I enjoyed that. At the same point, there was an opportunity to do more and to take those skills of data analysis and methodical research and the ability to see those connections and be able to bring those skills into a new career, a new job. So I was excited. It's good to have that growth mindset and really look into what you can do with what you're good at and how to bring that into a new opportunity, because there's more than one ways to have a growth mindset. It could be to learn something new and then go do that, but it could also be to take the skills and the abilities you have and apply them to a new situation.
I'm very interested to know, because something's just popped up in my head about the fact that you used to be a scientist, but you also have branding experience. And within marketing, as I'm sure you're aware, there's sometimes a little battle between direct marketing versus branding. And because you have branding experience and scientific experience, like direct response comes from science. So it's called testing because they kind of stole it a little bit from science. So where do you sit on that? Should we say, what's your position on the concept of direct response versus branding?
Well, two things. Testing is incredibly important. I am a true believer, especially when it comes to social media marketing, digital marketing, anything of that venue, that you really should be doing A/B split testing and really understand what's moving the dial. Because at the end of the day, it is a business. You're supposed to be making money. Return on investment is really key to the success of a business. However, on the other end of the spectrum, we're not selling products to machines. We are selling products to people, and people buy from people. They don't buy products. They buy from people. So you have to have the perspective of understanding that a brand is an emotional, a concept as well as a descriptive concept. So to be able to really understand the emotion and the thought process behind why someone's buying a product, to really understand why the branding is so important for that purchase decision is very important. So I don't think you can really have one without the other. And I would hesitate to lean too far in either direction.
Balance. Very
Yes.
Aristotle advocating balance. That's a very smart answer, and probably one which I will use myself and pretend that I made it up.
Have at it.
So you're in employment and getting all the branding experience, and people are coming to you asking for help. Do you recall the first time where someone asked you to do something that actually, under normal circumstances, you could theoretically have charged for?
Yes, that I remember my very first client, and she is still doing the work that 20 years later, which I'm very proud of. She's still doing the work that we set out for. She was trying to make a major career decision, and to whether to open her own firm or to stay on the career trajectory within an established business. And we did a series of calls. She was on the other side of the country, and we did a series of calls because at that time there wasn't Zoom, there wasn't you weren't able to just pick up a Google Meet or whatever. And we talked about what was important to her, what her long-term goals are. I just started asking a litany of questions, and a lot of what I was doing was applying the way brand marketing looks at a brand and the way they look at the experience. And so I was asking those questions. So applying the brand concepts to the person, and it worked. She was able to successfully open a firm, and here it is 20 years later, she's still doing the same work and loving it and very happy. I saw her, oh gosh, a couple of years ago, and it was so just so wonderful to see how much she still enjoyed what she was doing, and that it really had led her down the right path at that time.
Interesting. So would you say that not necessarily just that first client, but the approach that you use for taking branding principles and applying them to someone individually has helped with what you're doing now, would you say?
Yes, definitely. It was probably about 10 years after that first client when personal branding became an accepted and conventional concept. People started really discussing it. And at the time, I was very excited because I said, wait a minute, this is what I've been doing for 10. This is wonderful. I have other people who understand what I'm doing and why it works, and that are also pushing that concept forward. Like, what is personal branding? How can we utilize it? Why is it important? So very much so, it's still an important part of the work that I do now. And those original concepts and ideas, I feel very lucky that I've had that much time to really build a methodology that I know works and will get the right response for my clients.
Right place, right time, moment for you then.
Yes.
And have you found demand for what you do has increased as a result of, let's say, a trend of people requesting this?
Yes, it's there's no shortage of people needing help with their personal brands, and I'm so delighted and honored to help them in this part of the process for their careers, for their businesses, because it really does. It plays not only into finding the right job for an individual, but how they do their business and how they do it successfully.
So, how many times, I mean, approximately, would you say people are coming to you for additional help before you think, okay, there's something to this, and I perhaps need to consider going into business when you're in employment?
Well, those first 2 years, I was doing corporate and doing the side hustle at the same time, and it was just every like about every I'd say couple of months, someone would come to me, and when I started seeing that trend and it increased, I realized there was a real need and that I actually very much enjoyed the work. And there was an opportunity at the time. I love brand marketing. I think there's still part of me that would jump into a consumer packaged goods company in a heartbeat, because it's so interesting and so fascinating. However, people are equally, if not more so fascinating. So it's been really interesting.
So, would you say, because when I have these conversations about the story, I always ask about the first day that you're actually kind of an actual business where you've set up your company, and also what you do when you leave your employment. But to come back to the first part of that, would you say you've already got essentially a functioning business before you've even left your job because it's a side hustle?
Uh, Financially, it's interesting. When you start a business, often it does take a few years to really understand, not just how much you need to make in order to have it be a successful business, but also pricing and the offerings. So I would say with anyone who's starting a new business, be patient and test, really try to understand how to do, really test the pricing, test your offerings, whether it's a service or product, get feedback, because what you go into it thinking may change once it becomes full time.
And regarding when you left your job, what was that like?
It was the right time. It was the right time. We'll say, I'll put it this way: 5 CEOs in 4 years for the company I was
Okay.
at. It was a good time to leave. I could have stayed longer. I love the brand I was working on, and we were doing very well. We were definitely keeping the lights on. So uh, I could have stayed longer, but it was enough to know that I had another opportunity.
What was the feeling of when you were either going to hand in your notice or you actually left? What did that feel like?
I guess because I'm very forward thinking. So at that point, the processing had already happened, and I was like, all right, let's go. I'm ready.
You were ready to get stuck into your business full time, yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So day one, you're a business owner. What do you do?
Work. Get to work. It's the whole, cobbler's kids thing. You have to, it's hard to do your own work for your own business. So uh, at least at that point, I had been, working for a couple of years on these projects and these, working with these people. And so I understood that at that point I needed to really focus on what my goals were going to be for my business. Before it's not as important. When it's a side hustle, you don't have that obligation to really say, okay, what am I going to stand for? What is this business going to stand for? What are the outcomes I want consistently to happen for my clients that they can rely on and refer me to others? So developing that reputation was very important at that time.
You mentioned pricing previously. Did you have issues there?
That's something I continuously work on, understanding what the market will pay and what's needed. That's continuous improvement. I don't think that ever really stops for any business. You really need to pay attention to it and understand where you are within the industry, with your competitors, and with what you're offering.
Interesting. So, because I have spoken to people previously, and they're like, they have a very clear, should we say, approach, and it sounds as if it is this is the correct way. But you're saying the goalposts are continually moving, and you're revising that all the time. Is that right?
Yes, I'm also the type of person who changes her website every week. So continuous improvement, I do believe that is part of being a scientist and looking for innovation. And to really help my clients, I need to continually do that because I can't help them create great websites or improve their businesses if I don't understand what's working and what's not on my own.
So it's moderately new, let's say, in your business venture. Biggest challenges for when you were first starting? What springs to mind?
Wow. Let's see. Biggest challenges, I would say, and this is common, I've heard many coaches talk about this, is scope, understanding where to put the boundaries between what work you will do and what work you won't do. So at the beginning, that was one of the hardest things for me to understand. I understand the benefit of having an MBA and running a consumer packaged goods. You are in charge of everything. The buck stops here. You're in charge of the bottom line. You're in charge of P&L. If there's an issue with anything in the brand or the business, it is your problem. And having that mindset means that you also think that you can do everything for your clients. So it was important for me to gradually learn how to change the scope of where I could best help them and when I needed to outsource or when I needed to guide them in another direction.
And at what point do you start adding, let's say, different services? Because I know you cover quite a lot of topics. When I was doing the research in what we could potentially talk about, you got lots of different skills and how you can help people essentially. So I'm interested to know how that evolves over time and where your focus is with what you currently do.
What I've found the best use of my time for my clients is for strategy, whether that's marketing strategy, business, brand. That is absolutely the best use of my time. I've found that my time with them has evolved to focusing on that and then helping them figure out how to get it done more by strategically saying, okay, these are the type of people you need to bring on board. This is where you need to outsource this. This is where you need to go to get this. So it's more of having that overarching business strategy. And that's evolved over time. Early on, I would do a lot of the work myself, build a website here, create a logo, design a products and services packages. But, the more that's definitely evolved into focusing on strategy and guiding them towards where they can find the solutions and then having them do it, which, it's, I think, very important as a business owner to take responsibility for making those choices, making those connections, and hiring professionals to do the work that needs to be done, whether that's an attorney or an accountant or a really great graphic designer.
And at what point, because you mentioned that it's difficult to do the work in your own business, how does that sort of tally with what you're currently doing? How much do you get to outsource in your business, I suppose, is a better question.
I would say enough. One of the best spends that I've done over the last, I'd say 5 years is actually getting a business coach and doing a dedicated 2-year continual accountability with a business coach. That changed everything. It clarified, everything from pricing to my communications to what I was offering to what I was willing to do. So that would be, I would say, of all the outsourcing or the professionals that I brought in to help me, that would be the best spend that I have done.
Have you, if I say biggest wins of your business, what comes up for you there?
Biggest wins. There's so there's so many.
It's
I
okay
think
if
it's
there are so
exactly,
many.
yeah, it's okay. So this is a very small and quiet moment, but for me, it represents um, a bigger win that I hope happens with every one of the clients I work with at some point. I was working with a client who was in a very large law firm partner, and she was trying to decide her next step. And we worked out helping her find her way towards this smaller boutique firm where we got to do some really interesting work that was, you know, really a growth opportunity for her going forward. And it's really led to some wonderful opportunities since then. But what she said to me was, for the first time in 10 years, I am loving my work again. I'm loving going to the job. I'm loving doing it. And from me to hear that, it may be like a small moment and it's quiet, but it is completely, I think, groundbreaking in terms of how that can change how productive, how successful someone is going forward.
What were the things that had to change in order for that person to feel that way?
A huge leap of faith. It's hard to leave a very comfortable partnership position in a large firm. It's not for everyone, but it was the right timing, and it's led to very good things for her. But it was having that mindset that you can grow even in a career that you think has a very specific path. There are more opportunities out there than people can see.
So it was a major switch, which then ended into a positive thing. Is there any where you've sort of, I don't know, spoken to someone and you've highlighted some things and it's fairly subtle, but it's made a massive difference for them?
It's a good question. I have a good example. Okay, so I was working with the CEO of a large media company and media marketing. She had the company had a certain set of offerings and services, and she had originally hired me to work on her personal brand and how that was interacting with the direction she wanted to take the business in. What we ended up doing was recognizing that the services that her firm was offering were not aligned with what she wanted to do and who her personal brand is and what opportunities where she could best shine and where her organization was the most successful. So we ended up doing work to create new service lines, and that made all the difference. It was completely unexpected. It was something where we were having a discussion about. I'm always talking about products and branding. I said, well, does this really align with the brand that you want to promote? And she said, well, not really. And I said, and how much of that work are you doing? Well, very little. Well, that really shouldn't be taking up, your so much of your website. That really shouldn't be taking up so much of your time. So that was a big aha moment.
It is interesting how I haven't done a great deal of coaching, but I've done a little bit of it, and it's amazing how simple questions can, I mean, just almost show you how you're spending a lot of time doing something, which if you'd just had some simple questions asked of you, it can just make a massive difference. So I totally understand. Regarding, let's say, current day, of the people that come and ask you for help, what does that typical inquiry look like for you?
Almost all of my work comes by referral. We just had one a couple days ago from someone I've worked with for a long time, and it's the understanding, I think the impact that the time with me can make, and being able to say, you really need to talk to her. She does it in a way that nobody else does, and she'll get you to where you want to go. So that would be, I'd say that's how I get most of my work. It's really straight through referral by someone who recognizes my strengths.
And the main problems that people typically have when you first have a conversation with them?
I would say right now, and I do think being in the middle of the pandemic and the way that has shifted the conversation between employer and employee and loyalty and employee retention has changed, because that's brought up people questioning why they're doing the work they're doing. It's the whole, what's your why, and the purpose driven. And I think businesses are also doing that from an organizational standpoint. They're learning that they have to be purpose-driven businesses. So I would say right now the biggest question people are coming to me with is how to take what they're doing or to change what they're doing so that it's more in line with their purpose, with their mission, or to change, to make some big strategic changes in their businesses so that it more reflects the purpose of their business and why they, if it's a founder or a CEO, why did they create it? Why are they there? And how can we communicate that, and how can we make business decisions that will align with that purpose and mission?
Is it something that you, let's say if someone isn't quite clear on where they're going, is that something that you can help them with?
Yes. The series of questions, most of my methodology is using a series of questions and giving them homework and having them contemplate this. This is hard work. It's not, when you're talking about these higher level concepts, it's not easy or obvious. And so, sometimes, yes, there's a light that switches on and they're like, oh, I get it. But most of the time it does take a series of questions and moving them, down a pathway. There's a methodology in marketing called laddering, where you continually dive deeper and deeper and deeper and go, well, why that? And why do you feel that? And, what else could be related to that? And you continue those questions. So that would be one of the things I think I do uniquely, is having the patience and time and the series of questions to get people thinking about, well, how does this, relate to what I want to be doing and how my business could work or my career could work.
I have to ask, is there anyone where they tell you what it is that they want and they have thought these things through, or is everyone basically operating where they think they might want something but they're not entirely clear on why?
I've actually been pleasantly delighted. Some of the clients I've had over the past year have had very clear and specific goals, and they were very much aligned with what they wanted to do. And it was just a matter of getting them to see, well, I want to get here. This is why. What do I need to do in between? And it was, or who do I need to talk to, or who do I need to bring in? And so I've been pleasantly surprised by having a few of those, but most of the time we start from scratch and then work our way up.
It was nice to hear, actually, that you've had a few that way, because I don't know, my preconception about a lot of what people want is that they don't really know what they want, no. And if they do know what they want, then they probably haven't thought it through very well, or I think you know what I'm getting at anyway.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, in terms of what is in the future for you, I suppose it's a good question. What are your goals?
Well, I do love the work I'm doing, and I plan on continuing that. I can't see myself. It's when you're doing something for 20 years and you enjoy it as much as I do, I can't really see myself stopping that part of my business. At the same time, with my book, I've been requested to make an audio book of it by reviewers and fans. So that will be in the works this year. And then going forward, I will probably, by the time this podcast airs, have completed my certification. I'm getting a board certification from the Corporate Directors International, which will prepare me. I've worked for a number of years on nonprofit boards, and this will prepare me to take some of the strategy and what I've learned over the last 20 years and apply it to corporations.
Great answer. We missed the book in the story, so it shows you what good a job I'm doing as a host because I missed a significant part. At what point do you decide to write the book?
Okay, so that's actually one of my favorite stories to tell. It was about 3.5 years ago. It was over maybe 7 months. I had so many people, my clients, past clients, colleagues, people, I know from networking groups and friends and family tell me, could you just write down everything you say? I had a workbook at the time that I used, exclusively with my clients and at retreats and workshops. And they said, well, the workbook's great, but we really need all those stories and the way you phrase things and the examples that you give in between the workbook pages that you don't have on there right now. So could you, in your spare time, could you just, write a book? And you get asked enough, okay, fine, I'll write a book. So it took about 2.5 years to write the book. I did not, I took my time writing it because I wanted to have the backup research, whether it was psychology or neuroscience or business acumen behind all of the methodologies. So people would understand why I'm asking them to do the different exercises. And it was well worth putting the effort into. My editor is brilliant. My mentors are brilliant and they're very helpful. So I'm most grateful for what they helped me accomplish with the book. And it was written, you can't write a book that's called Fun and Fulfilling Careers one question at a time without making it fun to read. So I pushed my editor very hard. I said, you need to help me write a fun book. I'm going to write it, but you got to tell me where am I going off track and where this is not an enjoyable experience, because I want people to enjoy the process. It's hard work, but it's worth doing. So if I make it enjoyable, then they'll be willing to do the work.
I'm always, I don't know, I perceive it to be a more positive thing if someone spent a significant amount of time doing it, because I do think of the two extremes, if you like, of getting it out really quick versus taking too long to do it. I think I probably fall on the side of there's not enough quality as much as there is quantity. So you spent a good amount of time doing it. Did you enjoy to do it?
Yes, that was one of the parts of writing the book that I was most surprised about. I actually, one of my undergraduate majors besides biology is English, and I really enjoyed the writing part of it much more. It was one of those moments, they talk about that sense of flow, where if I had time, while juggling everything else, and to sit down and write, I would completely lose sense of time and be able to just write for like hours. It was wonderfully indulgent and at the same time very purpose driven.
That is one of the signs of someone's passion, if I'm not mistaken, is not realizing that time has flown by. So would you say it's a passion of yours to write?
Definitely. Definitely.
Interesting. So I'm not going to move beyond the book, but I do want to ask, is there something in the pipeline? Are you writing a new one?
Always. So the workbook that will be a companion piece to it, so people have places to write down and there'll be additional exercises, is in the works. I'd love to say it's more than 40% done, but having gone through the process of publishing a book, I think if it was before I had published my book, I would have said, oh, I'm 70, 80% of the way there. Now, having been through the process, maybe 40%. So yes.
That's yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Favorite bit, favorite chapter?
Favorite chapter. Oh, probably my favorite one, which was the hardest to write was the final chapter. And you're right. It's very hard. Like when you're writing, it's hard to know when to let it go, because you're never going to feel like it's done. There's always more to improve. But it was understanding how to take, the purpose of what I do, which is by helping people find the work they love to do and build businesses that, basically make the world a better place. They'll have the time, resources, and energy to go out and help others and to make the world a better place. So that's why I do the work I do. If I can help people find joy in their work and to do good things and be successful, then they will be able to go out and do great things to help others. So that was an important, the closing chapter was very important for me to write. And, maybe, I guess maybe this is, I hadn't thought of it this way, but maybe by writing it allowed me to let the book go, to say it was time.
And what about the actual promotion of it? Because the way I view it is that it's almost like two different jobs. So
Yes.
I mean, you're at an advantage because you've got marketing experience, but for most authors, they think the job is done when the book is done, but in reality, that's where all your work starts, right? So, thoughts there?
Yes, I've actually really, one of the things I enjoy the most about promoting the book is having conversations with people like you who ask really good questions and have very good insights. So I've thoroughly enjoyed being on podcasts and the conversations and the new ideas that come out of that. So that's the good part. All of the other business of marketing of a book, there's a lot of wonderful groups and communities out there of writers that do want to help others. And I would highly recommend finding at least one, if not a few of those, and getting a few mentors as well who've been through the process. It makes it much more, like you said, the second job, which is marketing the book, much more enjoyable, because you have someone to go to that you can say, well, I've been told to do this, but does this make sense? Have anybody? It's much better to have that support.
Are you proud of what you created?
Very much so. Yes.
Well done, then. It's not easy to be proud of yourself, I don't think. So congratulations on becoming an author.
Thank you.
Is there anything I should have asked you about today?
That's a good question. I think that about covers it. Like I said, my next step, I'm looking to be on a board of directors for an organization where I can apply all of this knowledge. And I'm very excited that I'll be starting that process very soon.
Want to share a bit more on it, or is it super confidential?
No, it's that's another interesting story. I was asked by a friend of mine, another CEO, who was working with an organization. It's ACE LLC, who was putting out an online course. And she said, well, I know you've worked with a number of your clients, especially, professional speakers and other, thought leaders who produce online courses. Could you just take this course and tell me what you think about it? You have an MBA, you'll understand. It's a board governance. You sit on nonprofit boards, you'll be fine. So, she wanted feedback on, how did it sound? How was it set up? Did it run well? And I had time, so I was okay. I'll help you out. And she was a very good client of mine, so of course I'm going to help her out. So I took the course, and it was all about board governance and being on, preparing yourself to be on a board of directors. And at the end of it was an online course. At the end of the course, the director, Michelle Ashby, wonderful podcast guest. I love listening to her. She had asked, to have a one-on-one with me because I had scored very highly, apparently. And she said, well, you really should be doing this for a living. You're clearly very adept at it. So could you just, take this other course? And at the time, the course I'm in is very intensive, very focused, big commitment, both time and money. And I was like, I don't have time right now. I've got too much running going on. And she said, well, just think about it. So 7 months later, I called her up and said, all right, when's the next, when's the next class? And she said, I'm creating a cohort of 12 women, and I think you would be an excellent addition to it. So
Sounds positive. Sounds like a good thing.
yes.
Why 7 months? Just out of interest.
Um, You know what? This is one of the exercises I do with my clients is called time mapping. And it's the idea of being consciously choosing how you're going to spend your time. So I also do this exercise for myself. And at the time, I understood there were certain obligations and organizations that I was helping that I needed to step back from. And so once I had developed a plan, you can't necessarily just step away from something. You need to plan months in advance sometimes. Once I understood when I would be able to step away from those organizations, I knew that the time was going to open up in my schedule for the course and that I would really be able to seriously dedicate attention to it.
So organized, and one of the things that keeps coming up for me is that you're very productive. Have you got anything that you wanted to add on that particular note?
I'd like to spend more time kayaking this year. So,
So you want to be
being
a little less
outdoors.
productive.
Yes, yes. I realize that there's times in your life, and I mean, I would throw the question back to you as, you know, has there been a time in your life where you've recognized that you need to spend time doing the growth, you know, working hard to push yourself to that next level, but then, you know, like what would you do after those? Because I'm sure you can think about in your mind those points where you had to hustle, you had to work really hard. And then like, what did you decide to do afterward? You know, to step back, to reflect.
Have you heard of the term grit entrepreneur?
Uh,
I'm quite good when I have to be, but when I no longer have that struggle, when it starts to get comfortable, I have to find a new thing, which is going to take my, should we say, I mean, obsession is a bad, is considered a negative thing, but tunnel vision. I'm going to work on this until I get to the point where I guess it's comfortable again. So I don't think of it as work as such, because it's just, as you say, as you mentioned previously, it's kind of the time flies by and you're working on this thing until you get to the point where you want it to get. So I think you do have to be thinking about that personal time, as you referenced. But I just kind of, it's just a thing that I do. I just get hold of an idea that I want to do, and then I hammer it until I get to the point where I have to find a new thing. That's about as introspective as I get, I suppose.
it's good to be aware of though, because then you can understand the cycle of which new project or which new business you'll enter.
All right. Well, I think it's been really, really nice going over your story, and I think there's an awful lot of learnings there, which is why I like to do it. Is there anything that you'd like to close with?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. This has been a good discussion.
Well, where is the best people, the best place to find you, and also where people can buy the book?
So the book is on Amazon, ebook and paperback. Fun and fulfilling careers, one question at a time. The best way to reach me would be on LinkedIn at Heather H. Bennett, or you could go directly to my website with it, which is heatherhbennett.com, or my business site, which is creativebrandcoach.net.
And when you Google your name, do you come up first? This is a reference
Yes.
to what we talked about previously, about there
Yes.
being many Heather Bennetts and many Thomas Greens. But yeah, I appreciate your time today, Heather. You've been a great guest.
Thank you so much, Thomas. I've really enjoyed this.